can only say no to this job once. In other words, if we didn't take it, J&J would never open the door to Japan again. It was truly a unicorn job. I fiddled, I tinkered, and I ultimately discovered that harmonic is not unlike a guitar string. But you can see right here, I had limited safety training on how to navigate this repair. That is a helmet that is designed to protect you from blindness. And today we're going to explore 5 equations that track my journey from a car accident to surgical robotics to content creation and live streaming, and ultimately a journey of 12 relocations with my family to get us to Japan.
Hey, Pretentious Engineer here. I know you didn't ask, but welcome to your weekly one-on-one, where I tackle some of the internet's most challenging questions concerning engineering, global leadership, life in Japan, and more. Now, this is a special episode as I'd like to share a compressed version of my most recent TED Talk, which is focused on nurturing a willingness to dabble and leveraging intellectual curiosity to solve big problems. This talk also tracks my family's decade-long journey towards Japan, and it's going to be part of a larger series I'm curating on TED Talks in general, as I've already given 2. One internally to Johnson & Johnson in front of 1,600 people, and one externally to the Seizen International community. Now, in this TED Talk series, the first video, which I'll link somewhere, is just going to talk through how to do a TED Talk. So I've documented the entire process I went through of writing and practicing and rehearsing it. So I'll generate a whole bunch of tips and a robust tutorial for that, again, somewhere. The second video is actually why this video exists. There's an amazing editing and social media team at Seizen International School that is curating all these talks and editing all these talks. And I wanted to provide them with a behind the scenes look at how I would approach video editing and framing. So if you're ever interested in doing DaVinci Resolve or just want to know how I make my videos, there will be a tutorial for that team that walks through how I made the video that you're about to enjoy. And then the third link will eventually be in the description. Once the Seizen team edits the official talk, because this is an unofficial version of the talk, I'd encourage you to click that link just to drive engagement to their channel, because every year they bring in new speakers and do new talks. So it'd be really great to support that group of high schoolers. But anyway, enjoy the talk. You can sip on that.
When I was 16, I totaled my car, which set my life up for a new direction. I ran a red light and hit this beautiful yellow Audi. My life was ruined. I had spent all the money I had in order to purchase this car. But innovation, or necessity, drives innovation. I quickly got to work painting my neighbor's house, and after saving up around $500, I bought a new front end and hood and started reassembling my car piece by piece. Now, the hardest part of this entire journey was the radiator. Now, we're going to assume that just like high school Joe, none of you really understand how cars actually work. A radiator is a brilliant piece of engineering. There are these tiny little foils of metal that circulate fluid through the engine in order to keep it cool. This is really helpful if you're idling in a McDonald's drive-thru with your friends and you don't want your car to overheat and light on fire. Well, I put this radiator in and out of the car probably 12 times. I had no roadmap. I didn't think to check YouTube because YouTube wasn't as much of a thing back then as it is now. And I had this beautiful epiphany once I got the radiator to actually sit in. I had a friend who handed me a welder. He said, good luck. And before I even was able to put the radiator on, I actually had to weld my frame. Sorry, backtrack a little bit. But you can see right here, I had limited safety training on how to navigate this repair. That is a helmet that is designed to protect you from blindness. And as you can see, I'm closing my eyes and welding, which is not how you're supposed to do it. But as I was assembling the radiator after welding, I had this beautiful epiphany that somebody doesn't wake up one day and decide to make a radiator for a 1994 Honda Accord. Instead, they look at all the designs that have come from the past, and they work across a wide range of constraints in order to see how their radiator fits in with all the other components in the system. Now, I found this collaborative, creative approach to innovation beautiful. It's actually what led me on the path from civil engineering to mechanical engineering. Now, you may have noticed the emergence of an equation, and I'm going to assume that you're not all well-qualified engineers that enjoy complex multi-physics equations. So we're going to keep things really simple today with simple addition. Keep it at your level. Today we're going to explore 5 equations that track my journey from a car accident to surgical robotics to content creation and live streaming, and ultimately a journey of 12 relocations with my family to get us to Japan. When I was a kid, my father had a passion for music that did not match my own. While other children heard bedtime stories, my dad played blues on electric guitar. He toiled relentlessly to help me catch that musical bug. My first electric guitar lesson with him was a total disaster. In his excitement, he started doing full chords and blues solos, and I could barely hold a pick. And naturally, this lesson ended with me in tears and my mother yelling at my father. See, when we start learning something new, we like to think the path to understanding is a straight line. We pick up a guitar, we learn a few chords, and soon we're soloing like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I would argue we have to chase learning from different angles, playing with it, until we get that spark of understanding. Take my musical journey. Electric guitar was a total disaster. So my dad picked up a drum set, but neither of us could figure that out, so drums were a bust too. But my in for music was Guitar Hero, that catchy music video game with the plastic controller. My father noticed that when I would play, I would flick or slap the controller like a bass. And after a bit of tender coaching, I joined my church's youth group, playing bass. From this point, I was able to pick up different instruments as new needs arose. I picked up vocals in order to lead our church's band. I learned acoustic guitar in order to play music for churches in Japan during mission trips. I learned drums in order to teach high schoolers how to keep tempo. And I actually learned electric guitar for my first TED Talk. I love how knowledge transfers in unexpected ways. It took me 6 years of dabbling around music until I found the bass and reached a level of competency. And I got faster from instrument to instrument. It's crazy. These learnings have even transferred into my job at Johnson & Johnson. So what I'm about to show you is raw surgical footage. So if this stuff grosses you out, like look away right now. Yeah. So this is one of my favorite instruments. This is the Harmonic Ace Plus 7. Roughly the width of a pencil, this device can efficiently manipulate and transect through tissue with a high level of precision. In this hysterectomy, a thick ligament is being transected to safely remove the cervix, a life-changing procedure. When I first saw this technology, I was naturally perplexed as to how it worked. Naturally, I followed my curiosity and started exploring. I connected with the engineers that had originally developed this technology. I went into the lab and started playing with the power settings of a generator to see if I could make harmonic cooked tissue in different ways. I fiddled, I tinkered, and I ultimately discovered that harmonic is not unlike a guitar string. When you pluck a guitar string, it creates a distinct sound wave that vibrates at resonance. At Johnson & Johnson, we send a distinct sound wave through a long, thin titanium blade to make the blade tip vibrate at resonance, like a guitar string. When you bring this blade tip in contact with tissue, the friction creates immense amounts of heat, which allow us to cut and seal without bleeding. This is what excites me, and you'll find me dabbling where crazy technologies are improving patient outcome. For 5 years, I was immersed in robotic surgery R&D, discovering new ways to seal tissue with robotically controlled instruments. I dabbled throughout my career in multiple roles. I started as a design engineer, the person who makes things like that instrument. I progressed into a robotics controls engineer, the person who makes things move. And then finally, I became a systems engineer, the person that makes sure when things move, they don't accidentally create a murder bot that drags the patient across the table. Now, just kidding, it's a little extreme, but the main goal of systems engineers is to manage risks and requirements to make sure that all the pieces come together in a way that fits well, like how a radiator connects to the engine. Now, throughout my career, while I dabbled and explored, I always gravitated towards the wizards, the people with big brains in our organization that had been working on medical devices since before I was born. It was really common to host brainstorming sessions in the event that a project team was struggling with a problem, and everyone would take a pause, sit around a table together, and start working a problem. And that's what really helped me grow as an engineer early in my career. Connecting with creators who were different than me opened a lot of doors, including a life in Japan. While I was working throughout my career, my wife and I would come to Japan every summer to support small churches to meet local needs in their communities. We would do English kids camps, cooking classes, sports ministries in order to meet those tangible needs. I'm also a quarter Japanese. My last name's Isosaki, and I studied Japanese in college. So this was a very meaningful way for me to connect with my heritage. Now, our first trip to Japan was really difficult logistically. We struggled with fundraising, we came up short, it didn't look like it was gonna happen. And miraculously, I got a full-time job offer from J&J that came with a relocation and signing bonus. We used the funds from those bonuses to pay for our first flights to Japan, as well as housing and food. And I kid you not, the very first day that we actually made it to Japan, I found the Japanese headquarters. It was across the street, basically, from the first hotel we stayed at. And it really provided us with this picture or this vision that maybe someday we could actually live in Japan through Johnson & Johnson. But everything doesn't perfectly fit in life. Every summer, we would continue to do these trips as a family to serve. And then the rest of the year, I lived in the lab working on robotic surgical devices. After 5 years, everything started to converge, and my manager presented me with a sheet of paper that changed the entire trajectory of my life. It basically said at the top, front-end innovation lead, Japan. The goal of the job was to move to Japan, connect with Japanese surgeons, understand their unmet needs, and then advance meaningful innovation that would serve them or help them in surgery. As I continued to review the sheet of paper, my manager told me, "You can only say no to this job once." In other words, if we didn't take it, J&J would never open the door to Japan again. It was truly a unicorn job, something impossible. After calling my wife, we made the decision, at this point with 2 kids, that we were going to take the jump and see where it would lead us. And this journey was beyond our expectations or our imagination of what was possible. But this job was offered in February 2020. And there's nothing we could have done to imagine COVID, which killed the job almost immediately. Being locked inside our home, eventually with 3 kids, it was a wild time to work remotely and raise a family. But it opened a peculiar door to content creation and live streaming. We loved playing a board game called Catan with our family anytime we would visit them in Chicago. And we were feeling a lot of the distance being locked in Ohio. So we decided to purchase VR headsets and try playing Catan together virtually. During one of our gaming sessions, Felicia's brother suggested, why don't we try streaming our game on the platform called Twitch? And thus, aFamilyFrenzy was born, where we welcomed folks into the frenzy of our life as we learned how to raise 3 kids. Leveraging all of my experience from worship leading, concerning audio and visual, as well as software experience from robotic controls, I found ways to augment our live stream experience by putting a GoPro on my head and giving people a first-person DadLife experience. Basically, I would cook, I would clean, I painted our house, I did drywall repairs, all while chatting with our online community. And we ended up continuing to progress into content creation as well. My sister was a content creator, and she suggested, why don't you start posting videos on YouTube, which was crazy to me. Like, I just never thought that would be possible. But this created the viral persona of the Pretentious engineer, who provides unsolicited engineering feedback on the world's most challenging problems. Basically, I do really sarcastic, snarky duets with a twist of science. This ultimately led us on a path towards Japan. We made 1,600 videos across YouTube and TikTok. We ended up building a community of around 40,000 people, and we took them with us on our journey as the world started to open up again. Now, I'm going to show you a picture that's a little bit crazy, and you probably won't be able to read it from the back now that I realize it. This is a drawing I made for my son showing where his PS4 would be across what we thought would be 4 relocations to get to Japan. It ended up taking us 12. To give you a speed run of that, in April 2021, we were re-offered the job saying we'd be relocating quickly. So we sold our house, packed everything out, and lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. That was a bad assumption, as Japan never opened for the Olympics as we planned, and that apartment had a massive bed bug infestation. So we ended up moving into a hotel, Chicago with family, back into a hotel, back into the unit, waiting for 6 more months. Our 3rd child was actually raised in a closet, like Harry Potter style, because there weren't enough beds in the apartment. And then after another 4 months of waiting, we were basically offered like an emergency medical visa. So we moved out of the unit to visit family in Chicago, and 2 days before we flew to Japan, the borders for both US and Japan were closed again because of the Omicron variant. So we were stranded there. So we lived in a hotel with family in a furnished apartment, and then eventually we moved to Japan, made it to a multisando for a short-term apartment, and now we live here. It has been a wild journey to get us in country. And my son had to wait for 12 moves and 10 months to finally play PlayStation in Japan. So what I've learned from all this, it's been an honor and a privilege getting to live in Japan and connect with Japanese clinicians. Every couple months I would travel, get to see cases, experiences, the challenge they face in the OR. And I've really grown as what I would call a bridge builder between these 2 worlds. I live at the intersection of what people need to be created and then trying to influence people to actually do the right thing on their behalf. And it's been an incredibly humbling, passionate journey to get here and to do that. But I've been an engineer since I restored my 1994 Honda Accord, but at 32, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And it's likely that neither do you. So I'd like to provide you one equation you can take with you. And it begins with the concept of hoops and tracks. See, life puts us on certain tracks that are going to different places. The simplest example is that if you work really hard at school, you'll maybe progress from normal classes to honor classes to AP classes. And we do the same thing in medical device. There's different tracks if you want to be an engineer or a marketer or do sales or global leadership. And while these tracks serve a good purpose, they can also become chains that keep us stuck in only moving in one direction. And that's why it's so important to start to recognize hoops. Hoops allow you to jump or move beyond the track you're on. I like to imagine a circus performer trying to incentivize an animal to hop. If you want to stay on the track you're on in life, then just keep jumping through the hoops that are presented to you. But if you want to explore and dabble and find a different path for your life specifically, then you need to start partnering with people who have visibility to things you can't see. You have to take chances and take risks in your journey. The standard track that we could all end up on, work really hard at school, get good grades, go to a great college, get a great job, work for a couple decades, and die, just like everybody else. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do some of those things, but we also have to vigilantly look for where there's opportunities to explore and expand our lives while we get to live it. Now, the second piece I want to talk about is when you're training to jump through those hoops, you need to find experiences that show that you're betting on yourself. If you want to keep staying on the same track, just keep jumping through the same hoops. But sometimes you're going to have to challenge the status quo. You're going to have to radically reframe how you approach your life, shake things up a little bit, get outside your comfort zone to actually build the life you want to live. You can't live the lives that other people project onto you or the tracks they keep you on, but you have to find and carve your own path across them. Now, this final piece of advice is the hardest one to apply, and it is connected to patience. We live in a world of quick swiping and instant gratification. Our feeds are saturated with Photoshop pictures of quick win, like quick success, overnight success, perfect bodies, hustle culture, all these things that we can immediately compare ourselves to, and that can paralyze us from taking one simple, humble step forward. I want to remind you, it took 8 years between my first missions trip to Japan and actually helping my family establish roots here. So be patient, be kind to yourself in the journey, and be gracious to yourself as you learn and grow. It's not a simple straight line from A to B. You have to wander in the journey. And I trust that if you continue to be faithful to curiosity and nurture a willingness to dabble, then your life will unfold in a beautiful, unexpected way. Thank you.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed the art of the dabble, and I hope that it's encouraging to you in your own journey as you're figuring out what you want to be when you grow up and what you want to do with your life as you jump across tracks and jump through hoops. If you have any lingering questions or comments, feel free to let me know below, as I'm going to try to be writing more, like blogging and doing more of these one-on-one with the Pretentious Engineer videos. So I plan on using the comments as inspiration. So I want to genuinely answer the questions you have as you try to find your way in life. Also, we have 14,800 and something followers. We're like dangerously close to 15, which is crazy, 15,000 on YouTube. And YouTube may become a more significant portion of our revenue if we take a jump and continue to stay in Japan. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel. And also, while we have that wonderful community of all those people, 0 people have joined us, which is totally fine. But if you want to join the Big Brain Club, that would be super cool. You get little brain emote badges things as you stay with the channel for months and years to come. And I do give people with big brains priorities in the comments and live streams and things like that. But anyway, friends, keep changing the world. Sip on that. See you on the next one.